Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. Couple games here, 3 to be exact, in the WNBA on Friday. Definitely want to make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to check those out. I'm going to be running through all 3 projections here for you guys and a couple picks that I already have. Got a couple more in the Discord, so definitely make sure you check that out. Link is in the description of the video. I'm going to also have up right now, a preview for the entire NBA Summer League. I will be in Vegas covering that over the weekend, so make sure you check those videos out as well. But if you do want to know everything that you do need to know, I rank all 30 teams, got a bunch of players to keep in mind for props as well, so definitely want to make sure to check that out. For now, let's jump into the record for the W and get right into Friday's slate. Also, quick reminder about outlier.bet, link in the description of the video as well. If you want to use this free trial that I have as an offer for you guys, get 7 days of no payment there, and you get to use the outlier.bet tools. Everything that you need, one-stop shop. It's perfect for everything that you want to use while you're betting for things such as the WNBA and MLB, and then, of course, once the NFL gets back into action, as well as the NBA. So check that out in the description of the video. Also want to update the record. Nice little 4-1 on Wednesday in the W there. We are now up to 42-29, up 11.32 units, and the sides and totals are crushing, plus 10.33 in the 33 bets that we have made so far on the sides and totals there. So feeling really good about it. Let's keep it rolling into Friday. First game I'm looking at, Phoenix is in Indy. No injuries really to tell you about in this one. Pretty much everybody that you would need to know about is going to be suited up for both these squads. And the Mercury still looking pretty good here. Had a pretty decent win the other night. Ended up putting up 100 points on Dallas. Dallas is pretty much the worst team in the league, so do with that what you will. But that did bump that offensive rating up to 4th. D rating still pretty bad. They gave up 84 points to that Dallas squad, 9th now in defensive rating for the Merc, and their pace 5th. Same with the Fever, about 6th. Both these teams are just better offensively than they are defensively. You can see that here, and both could be so much better at rebounding, which is actually a pretty big astonishment for the Merc more than anybody, who have players like Copper and Griner, obviously, as we know, who you'd think would be getting a few more boards for them, but they are 3rd worst in that category. A little bit worse than the Fever, who are also pretty bad. And then the shooting, both really good shooting teams. Actually, the Merc shoot a few more threes, which is why they actually have a pretty good effective field goal percentage. The Fever just are a very efficient team on offense right now, not so much on defense. As we know with the Mercury offense, it's all about, can you stop their shooting? Can you stop them from taking threes and making threes? They have the 3rd most attempts on the season, the 5th most makes, and they do get to the free throw line. And that could and probably will be a pretty big disparity between these two teams. Is that the fact that the Merc will be able to get to the charity stripe, right? This Fever squad, 8th in terms of limiting opponents' 3-point attempts, 3rd worst in terms of the amount of makes that they give up from deep, and then the 2nd most amount of free throws that they allow as well. So things not really looking optimistic here for the Fever, at least according to the matchup within the stats. Other side of the floor, the Fever on offense do pretty much everything middle of the pack. I cannot explain to you how much every single important offensive category for Indiana, they're anywhere from 5th to 7th. It's incredible, whether it's second chance points, paint points, as you see here. Those are probably their 2 best. In terms of threes, they're in the middle of the pack there as well. You think Caitlin Clark when you think of the Fever, so you just think they're going to be hoisting threes, but she's really the main contributor to that, as well as Kelsey Mitchell. So they're going to need to make some threes as well, but I don't think they can really hang with the Mercury, specifically in the 3-point category. In the last game, the Fever won, I will say, and they did have the same amount of 3-point makes as the Merc. The difference was actually at the free throw line, which was interesting. I think that game was a bit of an anomaly, and the Mercury are playing a little bit better right now. But I do have a bet for this one in the player prop category. I do have a bet here on CC for that player prop, but I also am going to let you know that if you are in the Discord, you already know, I took -2.5 for the Mercury. I do think they're going to cover and win this game. I should mention Diana Taurasi is out, but that's not going to stop me here because of the matchup specifically. I do think that the Mercury are going to be able to hit a few more threes than the Fever. But looking at the Caitlin Clark stuff here, under 36.5 PRA, that is actually -130 on ESPN Bet, and that's a high number. It's too high. I believe that's going to come down. That's why I gave it out in the Discord right away to make sure everybody could get that same number. But if you look at the way that Caitlin Clark is playing on the season, she's averaging 30.5 PRA as a whole. Now, she did get enough to go over this number the last time that these two teams played. Actually, I believe she was right at 36. Excuse me. She was right at 36 the last time these two teams played. And this is an inflated line because you look at the Mercury's defense from above the break, not very good. It's the worst in the league, which is a huge reason why the books are giving her such a high number here for her PRA. Plus, it's Caitlin Clark, and so they know that if they give you inflated numbers on CC, the public wants to bet it because she's the most famous player in the league at this point. However, the Mercury aren't that bad against the above the break three versus spot players that are coming off the dribble, I should say. They're bad against catch and shoot. They're very bad against catch and shoot, but they're very good against the pick and roll ball handler and the ball handler itself. That's where their ball pressure is the best. And if you try to come down into the lane against them, they are very good at limiting things right inside of 5 feet next to the basket. So I don't think she's going to get easy assists to teammates next to the basket. And she's not going to be, they're going to be focused on her above the break and anywhere that she wants to shoot those threes. So I do think they're going to be able to limit her to under 36.5 PRA. Next game is the Aces. The Vegas Aces are in Atlanta taking on the Dream. And the injuries here are on all one-sided. They're all for the Atlanta Dream, which we know has been the case for them all season. Ryan Howard, Jordan Canada especially, and Ariel Powers now still out for this squad that is struggling because of the fact that they don't have their best players. It's not that surprising, right? If you do want to look at the Aces side of things, really nobody that you need to worry about. So they continue to be at full health. Let's look right at their season stats head-to-head here. Aces coming on strong. We've talked about it now. The things that they care about are playing well on offense, getting those threes up, playing with a bit of pace, fastest in the league, and they're going to continue to be that, especially with Chelsea Gray back, which gives them another ball handler, another great player in transition that can help spread the floor and find open shooters, right? Then the rebounding is something we should point out for Vegas is struggles, right? They are not a very good rebounding team for as good as they should be. 7th right now in rebound percentage, but second best in terms of shooting overall, effective field goal percentage for this squad. Atlanta, just bottom half of the league in pretty much everything as far as these major categories are concerned. The worst offensive rating, still a pretty good defensive team. They're going to play slowly and they're going to try to keep this thing low scoring, which is the exact opposite of what you're going to see here from the Aces. As far as Vegas's offense specifically, threes, and getting to the free throw line, especially with Asia and the way that she's been absolutely dominating the league this season, current MVP leader for sure in Asia Wilson. The Dream, they do a decent job of limiting threes, right? But not good enough. So the 7th in terms of opponent three-pointers made, but they will give up a 3-point attempts. And that's going to be what matters for the Aces. If you give up too many attempts, they like to play the volume game. They're going to make enough of them to outscore you. That's why it's such a big spread, obviously. The free throw rate for Atlanta's opponents, that is pretty good, 4th best there. So if they're able to limit the free throws, they can probably keep this thing closer than 15 points, but it's not enough for me to bet anything like that. On the other side of the floor, the Dream offense, not very good, but they will get out into fast break, especially Alicia Gray, who is someone who wants to get out and attack the basket, get free throws, and that kind of stuff. However, the Dream are, while they're not very good at free throw rate, I bring up the fact that the Aces are very good at limiting the other team's free throw attempt rate because, like I said, that's the main way that the Dream are going to be able to probably get points, to be honest. It's either going to the bucket in transition or getting to the free throw line if the Aces foul them, which they do a good job of not doing. As far as paint points and fast break points, those are the only areas on the floor that the Dream are kind of good, I suppose. I mean, 4th in fast break points for sure, but the Aces get back really well on defense, 4th in opponent points, and 4th in opponent fast break points as well. I normally hate giving a -150 bet here, but this is high, and you might be able to wait and find it on other books at a better price if it stays at 5.5. I would imagine that most books are going to keep Jackie Young's assist prop here at 5.5, and that's a clean under for me. Even at the -150, it's a slight enough edge for me, and according to my little baby model as well, that I'm able to feel good enough about taking under for Jay Young here. We just did this with Kelsey Plum against the Seattle Storm, and now it's still at 4.5 for Kelsey, but it's a little bit juiced down to the over or to the under, so I'm not going back to her on the under there. Plus, she's been really teasing at that 4-5 line, so she's likely to get 5 pretty soon. But Jackie Young, I think 5.5 is too high, right? I think it's too high for her and Kelsey Plum if that was to be hers. But Chelsea Gray's back, and that's a huge part of this. She's now been the leading assister on the team in the last 3-4 games or so, really getting her groove back, coming back from injury, and that's really up to the points for everybody around her, but not the assists, because she's the main one doing that. And for Jackie Young, you've got her going under in 3 straight games, and it's really about the disparity and the differences between when Chelsea Gray's around and when she's not. Over in 7 of 11 games without Gray, 6.5 assists per game, versus with her 4.8 per game, and over in just 2 of the 9 games that they played together. So at -150, it's a tough to swallow that pill there, but I'm still going to take that right now and probably come back to it and hit it with a little bit more if it moves at all in our favor. Last game on the slate here for you is one it's up in the air, because whatever happens to Nafisa Collier is going to be how this game goes. She's that important. She's probably worth like 4 points to the spread in general right now. So it does seem like the Lynx might be dogs on the road to the Storm, even if Collier played. But without her, they could be worse than that. So it just scares me to take -4.5 or +4.5. I think this is very fairly placed right now, with the assumption that we don't know that what's going to happen with Collier. If she comes back in, probably see this drop down to about 2.5. If she does not, you probably see this rise up to about 6.5, maybe even 7 for the spread here for the Storm playing at home, where they played really well. If you look at the season head-to-head stats here for these two teams, offensive rating about 5th for Minnesota. It's dropped down a bit. It was up as high as 3rd at one point earlier in the season, and the Storm down to 6th as well. That's where they've kind of lingered for most of the year, but both very good defensive teams. That's why you see a very low total for this game, right? Between these two right now, it's probably going to keep dropping to 154.5, 155, might get down to -150 to 152.5 as well. So keep that in mind. Not very many points expected in this game because it's two of the best defensive teams in the league, and because Minnesota doesn't have Collier and they want to slow things down probably even more without Collier. Whereas the Storm, they do want to speed things up. They've got incredible guard play, as we know, with Lloyd and Diggins Smith. So they will continue to push things. But if they can't get fast break points, that's something that will be obviously largely in favor of the Lynx' ability to win. They are just not good enough rebounding is the problem with Minnesota. 12th, they're the worst team in the league in terms of rebound percentage, but they've got the shooting advantage, right? The Storm, not a very good shooting team, in part because Jewel Lloyd has been so bad from deep all season long. But for the Lynx here, they take a ton of threes and they make a lot of them. That's why you see such a high effective field goal percentage. Keep in mind, all of this for the Lynx offense, very dependent on whether or not Collier plays. We know that. But they are first in terms of points off of turnovers, second in fast break points, and second in three-pointers made, 5th most attempts. So they've got the best three-point percentage on the season because they're really lethal from out there. For the Storm, pretty good in terms of limiting off turnovers and points off of turnovers and fast breaks to the opponent, I should say. 6th right in the middle of the league, though. So they're middle of the pack there. Good defense against the 3. That's where they excel, limiting attempts and makes as a result of being so good at limiting those attempts, as we know. So that's going to be crucial for them. But if Collier's in there, that ball movement for Minnesota is incredible. As far as the other side of the floor for Seattle, they want to do all this miscellaneous stuff we always talk about. Points off of turnovers, second chance points, fast break points, and points in the paint. That's where they excel. If the Lynx are able to play their normal level of defense, they should be able to stop them enough. They're second in points off turnover, 6th in those second chance points, but then 3rd in fast break. And the points in the paint, they do give up a decent amount. They're much better guarding the three-point line overall. So we'll see. It's a really close matchup, and I do give an edge to Seattle without Napheesa Collier, but I can't bet on this with how important she is to the spread until we know what happens. If you do jump in that Discord, you'll be able to get that info from me and the gang in there as well in the WNBA channel as soon as we get that news about Napheesa. And that is all the time that I have for you guys in this one. See you in Vegas. That's where we're going to have that Summer League video up, like I mentioned, already up if you want to check out all 30 teams and their rankings, as well as the key players on each squad for who you can look to bet on in those player props. Last reminder about Outlier as well. Link is in the description, as well as the link to the Discord. So check those out. And until I see y'all next, happy betting.